This video is part 7 in a series that provides an overview of the National Folklore Archive Initiative, NFAI, and an introduction to the function and content of its Folklore Collections Database, the FCD. Video 7, Creating Entity Records for Organizations and Meetings. In the previous video, we discussed how to create an entity record for an individual. In this video, we'll be discussing how to create entity records for organizations and meetings in the FCD. As I mentioned previously, creating records for all the entities associated with a collection is the first thing you do after creating your repository record. To recap, an entity is an organization, meeting, or individual that created or contributed to the creation of the archival collection being described. An entity can also be a repository or individual that had custody of the collection in the past. We're going to begin by creating an entity record for an organization, and the same rules apply to creating a record for a meeting. First, log into the cataloging interface using your username and password. From the cataloging interface homepage, click on the New button, select Entity and Organization. This is the data entry form for an entity. Looking over at the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the 6 components of an entity record: basic info, alternate name, contact info, relationships, links, and summary. As with an individual record, you must enter all the relevant data into each form and save it before you will be able to move on to the next form. Not every form will necessarily need to be filled in for each entity. However, at minimum, you will need to fill in the basic info as completely as possible. I'm going to start by filling in info for the American Folklore Society as an example, beginning with the basic info form. Preferred name field. In the surname/organization box, I'm going to type in the organization name, American Folklore Society. Deceased field. Although it's counterintuitive, this field is required for all entities, including organizations and meetings. Since the American Folklore Society is still an active organization, I'm going to select the No radio button. Library of Congress Name Authority field. This field displays linked data from the LC Name Authority file. By typing a name into the window, you'll be able to browse a list of similar names already in the LC Name Authority file. A search for American Folklore Society pulls up several. And the keen-eyed will notice that most are for sections of the organization like the Jewish Folklore and Ethnography section, the Children's Folklore section, the Folklore and History section, etc. I'm going to keep scrolling down to see what I can find. There, American Folklore Society. What if you're not sure, though? It is useful to double-check by searching the LC Name Authority file directly. Open a new browser tab. Type in the URL id.loc.gov/authorities/names.html and hit Enter. In the search box, type American Folklore Society. Now let's scroll down the list of search returns. You'll see it matches those that came up in the linked data field back in the FCD. Let's check over the record for the American Folklore Society. Note the name variant here, AFS. Now let's compare the unique identifiers. Here in the LC Name Authority file, we see the number 79112387. I'm going to click on the Browser tab with our FCD session and go down to the Name Authority field and review the string of numbers at the end of the linked data set. And there we have it. Now let's move on to filling in the rest of the FCD Basic Info form. Since we know the American Folklore Society was founded in 1888, enter it here. The biographical or historical information field is helpful to users of the system. I've got the official short AFS history prepped, so I'm going to copy it and paste it directly into the historical and biographical information field in FCD. The source for this was the American Folklore Society website, so I'm going to record that in the source field. Let's review the rest of the basic info form to make sure we've entered everything. Looks okay. The access field indicates that the record is viewable from the user side. We want it to be, and we'll select the status as completed. Now let's save the data we've entered and review what forms remain. The remaining forms are alternate names, contact info, relationships, and links. In addition, there's the summary and log forms for us to review. Let's start with alternate names. Not every entity will have an alternate name, but this one does. The entity we've officially identified as the American Folklore Society also commonly goes by the acronym AFS, so I'll be sure to include the alternate form of the name as a part of an entity record. Save it. Next is contact info. Here we're going to enter the current contact information for AFS. Indiana University, beautiful Eigenmann Hall, street address, Bloomington, Indiana, 47406. Telephone. You can add additional telephone or fax numbers. And a contact email address. When that's complete, save the form and move on to the next one. Relationships. As you can see, this form is currently blank. As you begin entering collections and start relating this entity to collections, this form will begin to populate. If there are already collections or entities in the FCD that relate to it, you can also fill them in here. As an example, I'll create a relationship between AFS and AFS Executive Director Tim Lloyd in the Related Entities field. We're going to choose the generic is related to designation to identify the nature of the connection between Tim and AFS. Next is the link form. Here I'll enter the URL for the AFS website. When entering a link, be sure to put http:// at the start of the URL, or the entry will be rejected by the system. Next is the summary field, which is just an overview of the content of the record. And finally, the log, which is a record of changes made to this record and who made them. Now that we've entered all the information we need for this entity and saved it, let's take a look at the record from the user side of the database. I'm going to go to the FCD homepage and type American Folklore Society into the search box. There it is in the drop-down. Let's select it and see what we can see. There you go, AFS. And that's how you create an entity record for an organization or a meeting. If you were doing a meeting, the same exact rules would apply. In our next video, we'll provide an overview of objects in the Folklore Collections database: collections, items, and other designations.